Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our stream today. This is ChainInterviews Block 1 with Cashaa founder Kumar Gaurav. Thank you very much, Kumar. Thank you for joining us today, for taking your time and sitting with us to discuss a few of our most relevant questions.
Thank you.
All right, to start the interview off, why don't you explain us a little bit about what Cashaa does and what the current steps and projects are that you're working on?
So Cashaa is a community project which we started to solve one of the very fundamental problem of the crypto or say blockchain community. In fact, when we started with even broader vision of this term called banking the unbanked, correct? Because we had millions of people. Normally, people use banking the unbanked as a word to provide bank account or banking services to the people who does not have this. And it was very funny because we also came out of the ICO. We came out of this token sale where we issued this cash token, and we realized that the biggest problem which crypto industry in itself have is the banking services. So if I want to tell that who the biggest or the largest population who is unbanked is actually the blockchain and crypto community itself. So we said, how about instead of solving the entire world problem of banking the unbanked, why not as a first customer, we solve the banking the unbanked of a crypto and blockchain community itself. So today, Cashaa, although as the roadmap, we are still building this banking platform, which will be starting with Euro, GBP, and different fiat currencies, which will be which gives individuals and businesses an ability to handle banking services through the license and through the regulated institutions. So in a nutshell, giving the bank account to or banking services to the crypto and blockchain community.
Okay, wow. So what you're working on right now is a pretty large project. And obviously that will mean that blockchain will already have a very huge impact in the banking and finance industry. But apart from the banking and finance industry, what would you say are the 2 or maybe 3 industries that blockchain will also have a very large impact in?
So biggest impact it will have is obviously on the governance, because working with many government across across the world, what I realized that governance is something which is not being much revolutionized by the internet. And why it was because it was more paper based system, and then it moves to the IT based system. But there is many components in a governance which require trust-based systems. And because it's a government, it's a pretty decentralized. Taking an example, India as a country, you have more than over 1 billion people, many states, one central government, more than 500 ministers, more than 500 ministers representing the entire country at a central level. So you see, you have pretty decentralized system. Democracy in itself is a decentralized system. So I think the first thing which can be really will have a huge impact is the governance and the many government systems, and then second, the supply chain. The reason why, because again, the supply chain is a pretty fragmented process where many individuals across the chain comes and then creates the product line. So, and because these both are very fragmented, I say this governance and supply chain would be the first 2 sectors which will have the huge impact beside the finance and banking.
Okay, obviously supply chain is something where blockchain will definitely be used by different companies who want to edge out their competitive advantage. But about the government aspect, do you think that governments are ready to implement the technology? And do you think that the citizens living in the countries who want to use blockchain will actually trust the technology? Because for this kind of thing to work, there has to be trust. Do you feel that this trust is already there, or how long will we need to wait?
This is a matter of adoption in enterprises or adoption by government. I think people are getting there. Obviously, for government, it's pretty not as agile or I will say as fast as working in a startup. Neither big enterprises. They take their decision based on many different factors. So, based on that, what I would say that because of this, a different level of clearance and different level of decision making policy obviously make it a bit slow, the adoption of any new technology. But I think the government is getting there. I'll take the example of Indian government. So Oxesys, which builds the Ox Ledger, which also one of the largest private, you can say, is a blockchain infrastructure back here in India. And in one of the projects where they were working for the government, the first initial stage was to onboard the entire state population and give them cryptographic ID. And in terms of number, we are talking about 53.7 million people.
Wow.
So on Ox Ledger, as of today, where we are talking, there are more than 53 million cryptographic IDs which are existing, making it one of the largest decentralized blockchain infrastructure in the world, not only in India. And the government, I see how the different state governments are planning and trying to work. I think I would say that 3 to 5 years we will have over 1 billion people on this infrastructure. Like on 3rd or 4th of August, there was a huge conference organized by few governments here in India, where we are all more talking about that, how we can also take it from benefit distribution system and supply chain to other part of the government. So I think the government is pretty working on that. The thought process has already been started. While some states are leading, some states are thinking, some states still are in a phase where there is a RFQ phase. But I think they are getting there. It's slow and steady, but it's happening.
Yeah, well, as always with government, slow and steady is the keyword right here. Apart from all these issues that we already mentioned, like people having to trust the technology as well as the government having to go through different clearance and decision-making processes, what would you say is the other single biggest challenge for blockchain to finally become like a mainstream technology that is used in everyday life?
I think that would be the understanding of what enterprises and big organizations need versus just building the technology. What I feel that we are have thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands developers across the world working on this technology, but we are just all of us are working in their own silos. Besides, not trying to understand what exactly the enterprise requires. Because when an enterprise have to implement a technology, it's not just based on the technology, but also on the regulation which is applied. And that's where we saw the biggest gap while developing the Ox Ledger. So when Ox Ledger was built, it was all built around the enterprise to understanding what is being required. So that if a developer is using the technology to build the application, they have the best fit, which is something required by the enterprise or their client, not just building what they feel that's just the cool. So that's why if you see in the Ox Ledger side, we have now two big enterprise partners. One is the HP Enterprise, and second is the IBM. And then together they are saying that what exact needs are required in a blockchain infrastructure, which is a best fit for enterprise. And I am very much related with this, that if we really want blockchain to be implemented and work across the globe, enterprises will be the first who can take this. And the reason why, because like internet or because any revolutionary technology, the first thing which you have to do with this technology is to build the backbone. And individuals are not someone who builds the backbone. Individuals, people like you and me, could be application developer, could be with a cool idea, who can develop a nice Facebook or Amazon or or something like that, which individuals will use internally, but individuals will use for the adoption. But the first phase is to have that basic layer of infrastructure, which is right now missing in the world.
Yeah. I would definitely agree, and I like the picture that you drew with the different silos that people are working in. And this is also especially true for different countries, I'd say. And this is actually a very good point to introduce one of our community questions. This question was actually sent to us by Timur Urpilainen. And what he realized is that in Kasha's white paper, there was only very little information about a few of Asia's most popular cryptocurrency markets, like, for example, Japan and China. What would you say is their current status, and what is your perspective on what is going to happen there and what Kasha's role will be in these markets?
Uh, to starting with, Cashaa is not present in China or in Japan. We are starting with Europe and UK. But going forward, once the regulations are being more lenient and more understandable, I think certainly we will grow to those market. But given that our roadmap is very clear to help the crypto companies with their banking problem, correct? I think that's the biggest problem right now. So any bank or any individual who want to start a company or a startup, he is very welcome to come to Europe. Get the it's a very business friendly continent. You can or UK, you can get yourself incorporated, and then you can work with Casha to solve your banking problems. So I think in the beginning we will. This is our help that we can help them to move from their country to the jurisdiction which is more easier. We can certainly give our advice. Obviously, it's on them to take or not. But once they are based out of Europe or the UK, it will be very easy to work with Casha to solve their banking problems.
Okay, so you saw as long as the infrastructure in these Asian markets is not properly established, as long as that's not the case, Kasha will not be active there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for this very clear answer. Um, all right, so as you said, there will be a need for people to work together in order to properly promote and advance blockchain. There have been rumors about platforms like Facebook, for example, implementing their own cryptocurrencies. I mean, Facebook is not really clear about what their own strategy in that regard will be. But do you think that if, like, Facebook, Instagram, all the different social media websites would start to use blockchain in a way that is actually visible for the end user, do you think that would actually promote the adoption of blockchain globally?
Yes. Why not? Like if the Facebook have more than 3 billion people, so let's say even a 5% of them will, and I'm sure like at least 90% of them are not aware of blockchain technology. So let's say even out of those 90%, 10% more will be aware of the technology because you are using some cool technology to help them. Certainly, it will help to more adoption. But my point is always that end user does not need to know what and how the technology works. I don't think still many people using Facebook know how exactly TCP/IP protocol works. They
Very
don't
true.
know. No, the same for the car. People like driving from cheap to expensive car. I don't think that they know 100% how the car works. So it is really not important for the mass adoption to understand and know about the technology. Obviously, there will be people who are enthusiasts and they will know about it. But yeah, just I say, no, it's really not important. I don't feel it's important. People knowing about technology. What people need is an application which they can use, which can simplify their lives.
Yeah, that's true, definitely. With many technologies we use every day, we don't really know what's behind the technology and how it works. The main the main source of adoption is pretty much trust. People just need to trust it, even though they might not fully understand how it all works. Okay, so we've pretty much talked about a little bit about the technology now, and also about the end consumer. But there's also a different factor in this equation, and this is the developers. The developers, the talents who promote the technology. Looking from your perspective, also trying to hire new developers for Kesha, do you think the market is already ready to provide all these new talents? And what would you say are the strongest markets right now to find new and well educated blockchain developers?
Uh, that's a bit difficult question for us because um, based out of Europe, UK, and also India, I think I'm somehow agree that you don't have much of the available resource in terms of the human resources available to work on this technology, who really understands the technology and then work, not just trying to cover up with some fancy thing. So, but in terms of where I have seen is the most of the engineers and the developers which are present is obviously UK, US, Europe is being the leading ones,
Okay,
and
well,
then more and more it is going into the mainstream where we need more projects and everything. And the countries like also we can say Philippines, India, Pakistan is also slowly started catching up
hmm,
these technologies in terms of developer resources.
yeah. You haven't mentioned Malta at all. Is there any valuable talent? I mean, obviously the infrastructure there is one of the best in the world. What about the talent from Malta?
Uh, See, Malta is anyway very small country with a very small population.
Yes.
It have an infrastructure, but I don't see that the companies who are licensed in Malta is actually based out of Malta. So there are very less percentage of companies who are actually based there. So it really doesn't matter there is a talent in terms of human resources or not, because there is no physical no development going on there.
Yeah.
Most of the development is going offshores. So
Yeah. There's a lot of truth in your statements, definitely. Okay, now that you've pretty much realized that there's a huge lack of talents in the market, off the top of your head, what would you say are the best possibilities for young people who want to explore the technology, maybe for those with an IT background, as well as for those who do not have an IT background? Would you say are the best resources to educate yourself about the technology? Is it classical university education? Would you recommend them to join hackathons and challenges? What would you say is your feeling about how to start exploring the technology?
I think the first thing is to obviously understand what is Bitcoin and read the white paper of Bitcoin. Not very big; it's 9 pages, small document. And starting from there, start coding in C++. Take the bit and try to play with that. There's a fantastic book by Andreas. You can read that too, as it's a very simple language. So I think these are the basic things. Once you have downloaded the Bitcoin code, played with it, read the Andreas book, I think after this you will be pretty much you able to make a judgment by yourself what next thing which you have to do.
Hmm.
You don't need anyone's advice to understand what is the best for you, because nobody knows you best than yourself.
That's very true, obviously, as well. All right. We have one more community question at this point before we have one last more informal question. And this question is about the banking license, perhaps for Cashaa, and as well for other cryptocurrency and blockchain companies around the world and in different countries and jurisdictions. What is the status there? How is the development going?
What's the question about getting the banking license?
Yeah, exactly. The banking license for different cryptocurrency and blockchain companies like
Uh,
Cashaa.
I would say that still the best is Europe when it comes to the banking in general, also because banking in Europe is much advanced and open
Hmm.
compared to other part of the world. Uh, so there are many countries which are very flexible. I would say in Europe in general, and then obviously you have country laws. But then after that, I will say UK, US. BVI is coming up very greatly in terms of banking for
Hmm.
crypto blockchain. I will say it's a very young. Like not many people have discovered that,
Yeah.
but it's fantastic, a great opportunity to look there and see. how they can work, because the government is very open to work and support these kind of initiatives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then to conclude our interview, maybe one last more informal question. If there was one person that you could convince today to help you grow your company, help with the blockchain adoption, who would that person be? Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, anyone? Who would that person be and why?
To convince people to adopt the technology.
Yes.
I think our prime minister is can do that greatly,
Mm-hmm.
because he got the good fan following. So I think that's, if you ask me right now, that if India will open up, and India's Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi says that no, this technology or this thing which gonna work, I think we suddenly see over at least 500 million people start using technology. So I'll say nobody have that kind of fan following. So
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Kumar, for taking your time today. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today to our first block of the Chain interviews. Leave your comments down below regarding what you liked, maybe about also what you didn't like, so that we can improve on the next time. As you saw, we also answer questions from the community, so as soon as you know about the next interview partner, feel free to message us with your questions you have for our interview partner. We will make sure to ask them the most relevant ones so that you also get the best experience out of the interview. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a nice day and see you the next time.